Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Nobody's Listening here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel, the best Star Wars show on the internets, if I may say. Do you
Period.
say that as well, Rachel?
Absolutely. I didn't even know it was being debated.
Yes, there's always debate because the fandom is toxic. So there's
Oh,
always
right.
debate, of course. But we
Fair.
know in our heart of hearts that we are the best. We bring the fire and the knowledge and the hard hitting critiques of
Mm-hmm.
things that deserve to be
Mm-hmm.
critiqued. And Celebration just ended. Before we dive into
Yeah.
the final two episodes here of the Bad Batch season two, the Summit and Plan 99, um, season three of the Bad Batch has been
I
announced. It's the
know.
final season, they said, the
I mean
last season.
that makes sense. Basically, especially after having watched the finale, which I finally watched today. Like this is the middle of a trilogy, and it feels like the middle of a trilogy. So that makes sense. Even though I'm greedy and I want more, 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 more.
Now, I'm going to ask you. Obviously, there will be spoilers for all this stuff as usual.
Oh yes.
People who are listening out there, but I'm curious. Do you feel like we're going to get a lot more death of the Bad Batch before season three is over?
I mean, I think it's certainly possible. Rebels taught us that no one is safe. They killed Kanan. Like after that, I was like, there actually are stakes in these animated series. Um, Although there's still a part of me that hopes that maybe Tech is still with us, so we didn't see the body.
I hope not. I hope not. Not because I dislike Tech, but I feel like that
Yeah.
would be a disservice to the storytelling. If like,
Yeah,
oh,
no,
never
you're
mind,
right.
he's actually alive.
Yeah.
What's that telling little kids? Like, oh, don't worry, like the dead, they'll come back. Don't worry. I mean, Omega's got to go through some hardship here.
Yeah. I mean, and she certainly, I was noticing it, especially when I was watching this episode, is how, like, she started off as sort of like the MacGuffin child. And now they do really treat her like she's one of them and an equal. Like, there's never a point when they're getting shot at or anything that anybody's pushing her behind them or trying to prevent her from seeing some sort of tragic, nothing. Like, she's very much full fledged a member of this group. Um,
She's an equal. They
yeah,
view her as an equal
yeah,
to
yeah.
them, which is cool. I like the Omega character, other than
Mm-hmm.
Treasure. I
Ugh.
don't like that, but
That's not her fault, though.
right. Yeah, and like I've said before when we've talked about the Bad Batch, it's like there's been some amazing episodes this season,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I watched a lot of the panels, universally like the whole the cast and crew, like the Outpost was the best episode. The Outpost,
Mm.
which I think is still that's the Crosshair when Crosshair turns to the light side of the Force, shall we
Yeah.
say, which is an incredible episode. But there's so many good episodes in this, and
Mm-hmm.
I was a little worried because I'm like, wow, we got some really cool stuff. Will the Summit and Plan 99 it was like a two-part finale? I think they released it all at once. How will it live up? So let's go into episode 15, the Summit. What's this one all about?
All right. So I kind of smushed these all together. So you'll have to remember exactly where we left off at some point. But basically, we pick back up. We're still in Pabu, and the Bad Batch is discussing whether or not they're going to actually save Crosshair. And they're researching. They're trying to figure out anything they can about Dr. Pershing and where Crosshair may be. And Echo shows up, and of course, he has a lead from his sort of underground railroad of information, and that Pershing is actually headed to a summit at Moff Tarkin's pad at on Eridu. Iradu? I don't know. I wrote it down and I forgot how to pronounce it.
I think it's
Anyway,
Iridu, maybe.
Eridu. There we go. On Eridu. Yeah, I'm sure you'll edit that and it's going to sound great. Or not.
Here's the thing. Like even I get confused by there is so much Star Wars content coming out, new
Yeah.
planets, new
Yes.
characters, new everything that I'm like I don't remember half this stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
it's no slight on any Star Wars fan if you can't remember the name of a planet.
Okay. Fair enough.
There's
Fair enough.
5 million of them in the galaxy.
So the plan essentially is they're going to infiltrate this place, slap a homing beacon on Pershing's ship, and follow it back to Crosshair. Sounds reasonable. Sounds simple. I'm sure nothing could possibly go wrong. After all, this is a kid show, right?
Right.
Right. Right. I love this opening scene because it really highlights the loyalty that is such a intrinsic to who the clones are. and also their individuality. Hunter is cautious because he's like, well, I could get, this could be a trap. And it just speaks to kind of like the duality and the complexity of the clones, just in a very like small character moment.
Yeah, I think what's cool about the clones and what they showed over the Clone Wars television show in this is, even in early the first season of this, is like the clones were initially sort of created to be basically just monotonous drones
Yeah.
and not have any individuality or personality or anything like that. But what actually happened is like, no, they're human beings, and they develop
Yeah.
personalities and individual traits and characteristics and stuff like that. And that's what makes what happens to the clones so sad and depressing. And they talk about, obviously, Senator Chuchi in this season, talking about like clone rights, like we got to stand up for clone rights. The Empire views them as property. We paid for
Oh,
these.
yes.
These are creations of ours. We paid for them. They are ours. They're
Hmm.
not individual people or human beings. They are just property of the Empire. And I love when you start seeing the clones like, no, 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 we're individuals. We're human beings with our own thoughts and our feelings. And like Rex says earlier to Crosshair, earlier on, where he's like, hey, we make our own decisions. We got to live with those decisions.
Hmm.
Try to help Crosshair, along the way there. So yeah, this is really cool, and I love the fact that it's just like, no, man, he's a brother. We're going.
Yeah.
We're gonna go. In Hunter, like Hunter, for his thing, he's like, it's a bad idea. Like he's scared that something bad is gonna go wrong here.
Yeah, I guess maybe they should listen to the person with the heightened skills in that specific area. But okay. So we get another little Fee and Tech moment where he looks very confused and uncomfy when she's like trying to be like nudge nudge wink wink. I'm just like, is this Ace rep? Cool, awesome. Um So then we cut to Hemlock, who arrives fashionably late at the summit, like, which is balls. You. I feel like Tarkin is kind of like you. You don't show up tardy because you will
That's
hear
true.
about it.
Yes. Yes.
uh, but this is cool because we see some familiar faces. These are all people that are from previous things, including Orson Krennic, who shows
Yeah.
up, and I was like, I recognize that fierce ass white robe. I bet that's Krennic, and then confirmed it's him.
Yeah, and
Cool Easter egg.
apparently they got Ben Mendelsohn to record the line of dialogue.
What?
Yeah,
That's Ben
apparently.
Mendelsohn?
Yeah.
Wow. God,
Yep.
Star Wars has sway, man. Star Wars
Yeah.
has sway.
That's
Uh,
called contracts.
yeah, I guess that's true.
Ben, you got to come in for one line of dialogue in this weird animated thing you know nothing about. Don't worry about it.
But what we do get here is some more details about what your boy Pershing, who is up to. I should, as soon as I saw that he was rocking a fascie, I knew it was bad news.
My
But,
boy Pershing, what?
well, yeah, I know, shocking. He's actually a bad guy. You'll be twist. So basically, his plan is just space eugenics. Or I'm sorry, an enlightened society through
Yes.
molecular alteration.
Yeah. Don't you want the world and the galaxy to just be peace all the time, Rachel? I
Yeah.
mean, why do we have to have all this war all the time? Why do we got to fight? Let's just change you on a genetic level
Yep.
so that we all agree and everything's fine.
You could race to some sort of mastery of something, perhaps. Barf. Barf. He's also, like you said, using the clones for experimentation without any compunctions because they don't require consent. They're property of the
Yeah.
Empire. Double
Hemlock
barf.
is an evil villain, man. Star
Yeah.
Wars has a lot of evil villains, but Hemlock, and
Yeah.
plus the dude from Westworld voicing him, and just like
Yeah. Jimmy
they're
Simpson.
just our
Yeah.
property. He says it so slow and maliciously. It's just like this guy's a bad doctor.
Yeah, he is like a humanity void with a bad haircut.
Yeah.
Like that is what he is. I mean, he's perfectly characterized. But it's chilling. It's chilling and pretty nuanced and advanced for a kid show. So they cut away before briefly saying that the next item on the agenda, of course, is Project Stardust.
Yeah.
See,
Which is the
this
Death
is
Star.
of course. This is like good sort of I think like fan servicey sort of, you know, uh cameo moments. Like this is where it feels fun and feels like a reward as a fan of
Yeah,
the series. Yeah.
because it's in a logical place. These
Yeah.
people would be talking about all the stuff that's going on right now, including the building of the Death Star. So it's not, it doesn't feel like, hey, we're throwing this in here for like member berries sort of thing. Hey, check this out. It actually has a place and a purpose in the world, and it makes sense as to why that would be sort of a shout out at that moment.
Mhm. Mhm. All right. So the Bad Batch arrive on the planet and discover that there's only one way into this there's a it's a little bit of a pun, right? Like it's a summit on a summit, and the only
Yep.
way to get in there is by hitching a ride on these rail cars. We get a fun sort of action sequence of them grapple hooking on and Wrecker being scared of heights and
I
they're
love that moment where like we gotta be precise, and they all turn and look at Wrecker.
I mean, that's good character stuff. It all pays off because we know that dynamic and we've seen
Yeah,
Wrecker maybe not the most subtle of approaches
he's not a
typically.
gazelle. He's not a
No,
gazelle.
he's not a gazelle. So yeah, when let's see here. Okay, so they get there, they get on there, they infiltrate just like they planned. Everything goes pretty much according to plan. They manage to tag the ship. It's going well. But as they're making their exit, they start noticing there's a little something hinky going on.
Fly in
Somebody's
the
starting.
ointment.
Yeah, yes, very much so. Very much so. There's somebody that's turning off security cameras, which, of course, instead of being sly, alerts the Empire that there's something afoot. And we discover that the culprit is human wrecking ball, Saw Gerrera.
This guy's always causing problems, isn't he?
You
He's
know,
always causing problems.
I want to root for Saw. Like, I kind of appreciate his total commitment. Like, I understand he is a maybe darker side of the spectrum of social justice and those kinds of movements, but like I find him to be charismatic and interesting as a character.
I like it because everybody can kind of relate to his perspective on
Mm-hmm.
some level, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
Saw shows up here and they're like, "Dude, you can't do this because he's gonna blow up this place. Why?
Yeah.
Because the head of the leadership is all right there, and he wants to take them all out right then and there.
Right.
Tarkin, all of them. And we know that the Bad Batch. We know that something bad is gonna happen if they're exposed, and there's no talking or negotiating with
Mm-mm.
Saw Gerrera. They don't
Yep.
really know that. And I was actually watching a video roundup of this, and I had completely forgotten about this. But one of the Bad Batch's first missions was to go kill Saw Gerrera back in season one.
What?
Remember? They
No,
show
I'd
up.
totally
Yeah,
forgotten.
they show. They're instructed to show up. And remember, Crosshair wants to take him out, and then they say no, we're not going to do it. And that's part of the reason Crosshair basically starts turning on them because
Oh,
they're soldiers,
shoot.
not because Saw Gerrera was there with all the refugees, and
Right.
and they were supposed to gun them all down. And it was interesting because this YouTuber I saw was like, it comes full circle. They did not kill Saw Gerrera back in season one like they were commanded
Mm-hmm.
to, and now we're going to see Saw Gerrera's actions lead to a very negative consequence to one of them now. It's very interesting.
That is actually really interesting. I mean, the thing with Saw, the problem with him, I mean, there's multiple problems, but the thing that's so frustrating about him is that he's always talking about sacrifice, but he's always the person who's making the decision about what sacrifice is worthy sacrifice and what isn't. And that is where you really kind of see the major character flaw in him for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what separates him ultimately from like if he were to take control and would he not be a dictator? I mean, all of those same sort of characteristics are present in Saw, but that's
Well, I
the
think
complicated nature.
he's kind of crazy. Like
Oh yeah,
he's a little Looney
kinda.
Tunes, and that's the thing. It's like he's not, Mon Mothma, who's got a head on her shoulders and can think 4, 5, 6 steps ahead. We just
Hmm.
saw Saw Gerrera in Andor, very impulsive, very like I'm just gonna go bomb these people. I'm gonna do whatever I want, and then Stellan Skarsgård have to talk him down, and
Hmm.
basically manipulate him into his crazy mind, thinking, oh no, this is the right perspective to go, and things of that nature. So he's a very gung ho, think first, shoot first, worry about the consequences later, because he's just so but again, we can identify with that aspect of it, right? Because it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
we want to do this rebellion, and
He's the id.
he's the
Yeah.
guy that can make the hard choices
Yeah.
nobody else really wants to make, and no one wants to really say they agree with, but sometimes it may be kind of necessary. It's he's a very complex character because of that.
I'm going down like a basically like a Freudian rabbit hole right now that he is essentially the id.
Yeah,
The and Skarsgård is the super ego, and Mon Mothma is the ego of the
yeah,
rebellion.
yeah. That's good. Yeah,
That's interesting. Anyway, so he obviously does not listen to them, and the stormtroopers show up. A battle ensues. Lots of exciting action scenes here, and the Bad Batch do manage to make it to the rail cars. But of course, Saw goes ahead and sets off all the charges anyway, and leaves Moff Tarkin perfectly safe. The top brass totally unharmed, but the electricity gets killed, stranding the Bad Batch in one of the rail cars. And I think this is where this episode ends on a literal
yeah.
cliffhanger.
Yeah, yeah. And I think what's kind of interesting is, everyone at the table's worried when they hear the explosions, except for Tarkin. He's like, "Look, man, I'm in a panic room here. Nothing's gonna
Yeah.
happen to us," and it just locks
Hmm.
down. Even there's actual stormtroopers of some sort that come in to like protect them as well. And I was like, man, if Saw could just think a few steps ahead, wouldn't it have
Yep.
been great if he would have infiltrated that and got in there and just took them all out right then and there. But yeah, that's where it ends, sort of like this cliffhanger. How they're hanging over a chasm that is apparently thousands and thousands and thousands of feet.
Hmm.
And how is this going to end? What did you think of this episode first?
I mean, I think it's great. I think it's peak sort of adventure Star Wars. The infiltrating of a villain's lair, all that kind of stuff.
Wearing
Like,
stormtrooper costumes.
yes, like it all they're playing all the hits. Like all the Freebird is happening in this. Um, I think it was colored by the fact that I knew details were coming, and it's probably why it took me so long to watch the finale.
Yeah, sorry
But
about
no.
that.
But I mean, I did really enjoy this episode a lot. I know that we've had a lot of like back and forth in terms of tonal whiplash, and I was like, oh no, this is when Bad Batch is like hitting its stride. It stacks up to all of the best of the other Star Wars properties, in my opinion. It's like when it's doing its thing, it's just as good as Clone Wars. It's just as good as Rebels. I mean, nothing's as good as Andor, but you know what I'm saying. Like
Yeah,
it is, and this episode to me definitely was hitting all of those marks. No treasure, just
yeah.
action and character stuff.
Yeah, when I first watched this, I was a little disappointed,
Oh
but that
no.
was that was because there's no Crosshair. I was like, "Where's
Mm,
my boy Crosshair
mm-hmm.
again?" And even
Yeah.
when they were talking on the Star Wars the Bad Batch panel at Celebration this past weekend, I think they even mentioned that they knew they're barely going to have any episodes with Crosshair in it this season, so they really wanted to make those stand out, which they succeeded
They
with.
did.
But again, I'm like, Crosshair's got to show up here. He's got to do something right. So I was a little disappointed by that. But again, I love the Saw Gerrera stuff. I love that he would be there, and I love that they didn't change his character. He is the same stubborn-headed. I'm gonna blow this joint up. You better figure out what you need to do, fellas, because once these
Yeah.
things go up, you're on your own, so to speak. And I liked all of that stuff. I appreciated because I didn't watch the second one immediately after.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciated this one more having seen the second one. But my
Yeah.
initial reaction was like, okay, this is all right. But because remember what our finale last year was like the destruction of Camino,
Yeah.
and that
Mm-hmm.
was a really, I mean, that was Crosshair heavy. That was a
Yeah.
very sort of like monumentous thing, and I was like,
Yeah.
can this finale, can it land like as hard as the first one did? We'll see. But yeah, I
Well,
like
I
it.
think they went in very different directions because I mean they literally destroyed an entire planet and people on the last one. How do
Yeah.
you top that? And I think what they did is they went in. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They took something that was internally devastating instead of something that was literally a worldwide devastation. And I don't know. I think you can do that in season two, and you not necessarily in season one because we've had a lot more time with these characters and a lot more investment, and they spent a lot of time building up the tech character. He's
Yeah.
probably aside from Crosshair, the most developed of all the Bad Batch at this point. Now I know why they would spend all this time with him,
Yeah,
but
that makes a lot more sense in hindsight now. Because I
yeah.
think on a previous episode I had said, yeah, I think Crosshair's gonna bite it. I think Crosshair's gonna be the one that dies, whether he
Mm.
sacrifices himself or whatever. Turns out I was off base on that one.
Yeah, you get 50% right, right?
Let's get into
Somebody
plan.
didn't make it, but
Let's get into Plan 99.
oh, Plan 99. So I don't know if you, I don't know. I didn't. This is not me remembering, but the significance of Plan 99, or do you know what it is?
Gosh, I'm trying to know off the top of
Okay,
my head. I don't remember
so
exactly what it is.
there was a couple of episodes in Clone Wars about the clones at on Camino, and there was like the
Oh, was
other
that the
clone that was
fifth guy or whatever?
he was the I guess you would say the disabled clone.
Yeah. Okay,
He
I
was
remember. Yeah.
clone 99,
Yep.
and he
And they named it
sacrificed
up.
him.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sacrificed. Yeah, he sacrificed himself when the Separatists came to
Yep.
save a bunch of his brothers.
Yep.
Plan 99. It's like double whammo, dude. When I read that, I was like, well, now I'm sad again.
Yep. Yep. See, I got to go back and watch the Clone Wars again too, because I'm
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
what this show has done is sort of like jump started. Like, I need to do a rewatch. I'm gonna do a curated rewatch of the Clone Wars and just sort
Yeah.
of go through a lot of those great episodes again.
I recommend getting that the somebody has put a doc together of it in chronological order.
Yeah.
I would recommend that because then people who are dead aren't suddenly just back and you're like, "What?
Yeah.
I don't
Weird.
understand."
Weird decision, George Lucas, to jump all around like that. Very weird decision.
Yeah. All right. So, where we pick right back up where we left off with our Bad Batch. They are currently stranded, hanging by a thread, literally. And Tech is forced to climb out of the car to manually reboot them because Saw killed the power, like the doink that he is. So while he's out, Tarkin scrambles some ships to shoot down the cars. He doesn't care if there are stormtroopers lost in the process. I think
I
it's
love that.
adorable that anyone thought that he would.
I love that. That is so Tarkin. That is perfect
Hmm.
Tarkin. Where the guys like there people forget there are Imperial leaders who don't want to kill their men.
I
Like
know.
they don't want to do
Twist.
that. And I love the guys like, well, but wait, if you send a Tie Fighter, we got guys up there in the rail cars. Tarkin's like, don't give a fuck. Blow them all down. This is a guy that landed his ship on a bunch of protesters on a planet, smashing them to pieces. So
Jesus
he
Christ,
he
he's
don't
such a
care.
monster. Such a monster. Jesus. Okay. So, yes. So, what the ships show up and they do manage. Like, there's a pretty cool shot of Hunter like taking out two of the ships. But
And
one.
and you remember he's like there are I don't know what he calls like three ships coming like they're basically like prototype Tie Fighters.
Mhm.
There's like three Tie Fighters coming and everyone's like, where? He just knows that they're coming. It's so
Yes.
good. It's a little piece of character development there. I love that they did that throughout the series where Hunter's always like, oh, this is about to happen, guys.
Yep.
Everyone's
Yep.
like, where? It's so foggy. We can't see anything.
Trust in Hunter, I guess. So yeah, he takes out two of them, but one makes it through and manages to kind of half blow the one of the two cars off the rails, stranding our boy Tech, who is dangling by his grappling hook underneath it. And there is a you had warned me it was prolonged, and I knew it was coming, and I'm not gonna lie, I got pretty choked up because of the performance and the way that it played out, where you were watching him do the calculating and realizing what he's gonna do, and like the bravery of that moment and the sacrifice for his brothers, and Wrecker watching it all happen.
Yeah.
It was just really intense.
It was intense, and I was like, "This is a kid show." I mean, they've gone to some dark places on this kid show. And this is again when we're not doing treasure.
Yeah.
These are the moments that make Bad Batch so good because you
Yeah.
got and I know there are people that might be listening to this like I can't get past treasure and these little like kid episodes and stuff like that, but you got to. I
You
mean,
got to.
remember these cartoons are supposed to be for children. They're supposed to be for like 9, 10, 11, 12 year olds, so you're gonna have to get through some of those goofy episodes that we aren't super fond on, but it makes it so much worth it for us when we get
Yeah.
to a moment like this. We're like,
Yeah.
oh no! And even when I first watched it, I did not think Tech was gonna die. I thought Wrecker was gonna save him somehow,
Right.
and I was like, because it was so drawn out. I was like, they're gonna save him somehow, and then I'm just
Mhm.
like, I love his final line though.
Yeah.
When have we ever followed orders? And then
Ah!
and then he
It's
just
I know. There's just like
falls
a
to.
shot of him plummeting and the gun coming out of his hand as he just falls away. And I was just like, oh my God, what am I watching?
Yeah, I mean, you get a main character just
Yeah.
killed off like that, and
Yeah.
Omega's watching it and just screaming. It's just like it's
Yeah.
yikes.
Yeah, they twisted a lot of knives with this. I mean, Tech is my favorite, so
Yeah,
that was a bummer. That was a
traumatize the
bummer.
children. That's what they were going for. Traumatize the children.
Yeah. But I mean, here's the thing: is his sacrifice it did pay off. He did save all of his brothers and sister. They do manage to get it going. They escape. They crash and are injured, but they do live. And here is where Hunter, who is so good at seeing what's coming, makes a very serious tactical error and takes them back to Ord Mantell, where there's
Yeah,
a medical droid, but also Sid, the frickin' traitor. I
I
hate.
did not understand this. I don't know why they went back there. That is probably my biggest criticism of this episode. Is like, you got to give me because they just broke ties with her.
Yeah.
Why would you go back there of all places? Maybe they felt that that was the only place that they could be safe and surrounded by people that knew them,
Yeah.
but they knew she was bad news.
Yeah, I mean, they never formally ended things with her either. They just kind of like ghosted a little bit. And I don't know if you've ever been ghosted and had somebody try to come back. It happens.
Yeah,
And you know what you do? Crush. Oh, wait, no, that's too small. I shouldn't.
I don't know. I felt that this moment felt a little forced. It felt like we got to put
I
him
mean, where
somewhere
would
where,
they go? Oh, Pabu, I guess. They could have gone to Pabu. They should have
yeah.
freaking gone to Pabu.
Why would they
Oh.
not go to Pabu?
Yeah, they should have freaking gone to Pabu. That was dumb. Anyway, but they don't. They go to Ord Mantell, and they do manage to heal Omega, who gets the experience of remembering all over again that she watched her brother die, and that is a very sad scene again.
Yep,
Yep, yep, yep.
yep. It's a depressing episode.
It really is. I mean, like I said, I was just like, okay, this is the Empire Strikes Back season, I
Yeah.
guess. Okay. Anyway, so there is a moment that I actually think is, again, just like more salt in the wound, but really great character stuff where he sits her down and is like, I think it's time for us to make a decision about the future. And this is something that we've been watching him wrestle with all season and some of last season of like, what does it mean now that they've become kind of surrogate parents to this person? And in this case, he's like, okay, I think maybe we're done being soldiers. He says the thing out loud that he has been kind of wrestling with, and we should go ahead and start a new life on Pabu. And I thought for sure that in this moment, Omega was going to be like, no, we can't. We still have to rescue our other brother. But she's like, you know what? Yeah, I want to be a kid.
Yeah, she's just. I think the gravity of the situation has really
Mm-hmm.
dawned on her now, and she probably knows like, well, if we keep doing this, well, I'm gonna see you die, Hunter, and I'm gonna see Wrecker die.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna see everybody die around me, and it's all fun and games and treasure until you see your brother like sacrifice himself to save your life right in front of your face.
Yep.
So yeah, I like that. I thought that was really a good moment.
Mm-hmm.
And again, kind of unexpected because you would think that it would go the opposite direction. Like, no, 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 she's the one that wants to do all that. But yeah, I like that character moment between them.
Yeah, I mean, it actually paid off something that has been very subtly happening all season with Hunter, and one of our big complaints is always the undercharacterization of that character. Like his character is, I have a skull face and a bandana. So to like actually see that they've been seeding this and they pay it off, I think is a good indication of like them maybe moving towards more deeper character stuff around him, which I would like because I want to love him too. Currently, he's just sort of there, but I feel like the potential for something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this doesn't last very long. This moment is real nice for 1 second, because Sid basically shifty ass Sid with her like shifty ass eyes all over the place. Finally, is like, "You guys shouldn't have come back here. You got too much heat. I had no choice but to be a traitorous asshole. It's your
Well,
fault, really."
I like that Wrecker noticed it because he's
Mm-hmm.
basically like, "What is wrong with you?" Because she's acting real shifty there, and he
Yeah.
notices it, and he's just like,
Mm-hmm.
"What did you do?" And then this is a
Yep.
classic trope in all kinds of movies like this, like
Yep.
when the heroes realize they've been betrayed, like by their quote unquote friend.
Mm-hmm.
What did you do?
Yep. Lando action. We got some Lando moments
Yep,
here.
yep.
So, of course, stormtroopers, along with Pershing, show up, take Wrecker.
Hemlock.
Or, sorry, I see. Yeah, sorry, Hemlock.
That's why earlier when you're like, I'm like Pershing. What are you talking about?
Sorry, there's a lot of characters. Hemlock.
Yeah,
Sorry,
it's fine.
Hemlock. My
Hemlock.
bad. So yes, Hemlock shows up with the stormtroopers and take him captive. Take Hunter captive. Hunter tries to send Omega away, but she can't. She just like can't leave them. So she comes back, tries to rescue them. Surprise, surprise! The 12-year-old is not going to beat all of the stormtroopers and Hemlock, and ends up getting taken captive herself. Echo rescues Hunter and Wrecker, and they are unable to stop Pershing from taking off with Omega. But they vow that no matter what occurs, I will find you. And
The
that's where
most
we leave them.
the most disturbing thing in this entire episode is when Hemlock is trying to get Hunter basically to
Yeah.
put his gun down, and he's like, "Oh, these the goggles of your boy. This is
Oh
all
my
we can recover,"
god.
and throws him down right in front of him. Like, that is next level evil right there. I
Yes.
mean, that is so disturbing on so many levels. And
Ugh.
I was like, holy crap, they're really going for it this episode. But
Yeah.
Hemlock is such a great villain. That's the thing, man. Star Wars, they
Yep.
just create
Yep.
these excellent villains. And
Mm-hmm.
they're so
Mm-hmm.
deliciously evil, and they're still not as evil as the Emperor. It doesn't even matter, like how evil you can make someone. It's like, well, he's got nothing on Palps.
Right?
He's got nothing on him.
Yeah, I mean, they're the best villains because they're not just like they're so evil without being mustache twirling about it. Like it's
Yeah.
rooted in a deeply chilling kind of evil, and it's something we talked about way back when we started this. Even though I understand this is not an old podcast, but like, can the Empire still be scary? Can it still
Yes.
elicit those fears? And I think they make a mistake by trying to iterate on Darth Vader because he like made the mold, broke the mold, and everything else after that is not going to work. So instead, they're going these other directions where they're like getting at the real darkest places in humanity, the
Yeah.
monstrous reality of humanity, and they are nailing it.
100%. And I think what's interesting is before, the last few years of Star Wars content came out, it was always like, well, how bad is the Empire really? Like, how bad is it? In the
Mm,
movies, you just see this sort of high level, Skywalker stuff, but you're
yeah.
not seeing like the Empire is really sort of this evil thing. And I remember when we were, I think it might have been the third episode of Andor,
Mm-hmm.
and where what's the planet's name where they're looking at the eye or whatever, but it's
Aldani.
Aldani, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So those two Imperials are just sitting there having a conversation, or I think there's three of them there, and they're just like, yeah, we basically just kept building Starbucks and McDonald's until they lost all their entire culture and they don't
Mm.
even care about the culture anymore. It's not even like they went in there with stormtroopers and like oppressed them in like a military way. It's like, no, it's more insidious than that. We're going to just deculturize their culture and replace it. We're going to give them
Mm.
all these amenities and things that they think that they really want, and they're going to lose their identity as an entire culture, and it'd be much easier for us to take over at that point in time.
Yep.
And that's like a level of
Yep.
insidiousness that is, it's just amazing. And then you see all this stuff in Bad Batch, and they've definitively answered that yes, the Empire is evil.
Oh,
The,
yes.
100%. They have answered that, and yes, it can continue to be evil.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
There are
great.
depths they can still explore, I'm sure.
Yes. Yeah. So overall, what were your thoughts on Plan 99?
Well, there is a little bit more of this, and that
Oh,
is
okay.
that
Sorry.
we see that Omega arrives on Mount
Oh, yeah.
Tantist and
Tant. Yeah.
sees that Nala Se is alive and is like, I will say, I mean, the Kaminoans are not the most expressive of people, but I do really feel like you could see the conflict here, where she was a, there's Omega, this girl that she loves, and just like the sickness of like, oh God, she's here. Oh no, and
Yeah.
I appreciated that because I feel like the Kaminoans don't get a lot. They don't get to do a lot. They get to be a little slimy and like because they lack affect, like immediately suspicious.
Yeah.
So to see a different side of Nala Se was interesting. And from there, Omega is taken to a room that is full of clones on tables and in tanks that are hopefully back to tanks, but probably some sort of specimen jar. So, like, let's really traumatize this kid as much as we can. She sees Crosshair, and despite everything, her reaction is to run to him.
Yeah.
You know,
It's her
uh,
brother.
Yep, and it's not the only sibling that she has in the room, though, because Emily
Yeah.
Kerr comes in and introduces herself and reveals that she too is a lady clone. The
Now,
end.
what was your reaction to that sort of big finale twist?
I mean, I don't know how I feel about it. On one hand, I kind of it makes sense how she has the accent that she does, and she is voiced by an actor from New Zealand that I like, and she does kind of look like Omega, but I don't know. I was hoping. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I feel like, huh? I guess.
Yeah, I had the pretty much the same reaction. I was just kind of like, huh. So how is this story going to play out, and how is
Right.
this going to fit into it? I like really have no real idea as to how this happened or why it happened or where they're going with it, which
Right.
I actually kind of like,
Yeah.
because I find it a little refreshing that yeah, at the very end there, I mean, we got basically the main story here kind of wrapped up, and then it's
Yeah.
like dun dun dun, clone, and you're just like, okay, well now I have something to kind of look forward to because I've been trying to theory craft in my mind like what could
Mm-hmm.
this possibly have been, um, but I just don't know. I don't know, and it makes me look forward to seeing what this storyline's gonna turn out to be.
Right. I mean, if there's anything I've taken away, we're now in 2 seasons in, and like it's clear, and we know they have an end game in mind. This is not something they're going to have to carry out for a long time. So I feel pretty confident going into the third one. It's going to be a lot darker, and it's going to have, I think, much more of a like linear trajectory. Would be my guess going into the final season. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think we're still going to get some kitty episodes in there.
Yeah, probably.
Hunter and Wrecker off doing some side quest, because obviously they're like we're gonna find them no matter how long it takes. Well,
Yeah.
it's probably going to take half a season before they find them, so they're probably going to be
Mm-hmm.
doing things. But I'm
Or
still
it'll
interested.
take place in visions.
Yeah, yeah.
Everybody
But
will be back together after the last 2 episodes of Visions.
but I like the idea that this does have an end game in mind here. I think next season is going to wrap up a lot of stuff with this. I think it's going to become very, very crystal clear as to what Palpatine's plan is for all.
Mm-hmm.
I think we will find out that Omega is force sensitive.
Yeah,
I
we
think
didn't find that out this time. I was
right.
sure we were going to find that out.
Yeah, I think we're going to find that out. I think we're going to find out that that's why they want her so bad because maybe all these Palpatine clones that they're trying to they need a force sensitive body to sort of house
Mm,
Palpatine's consciousness or whatever it may be. I think we're in Omega might be the key to that because she's a clone with
mm-hmm.
for sensitive in the Force.
Yeah.
I think we'll find that out, and I think Crosshair is going to have a hero arc. I think Crosshair is going to be the one that
Yeah.
saves Omega and gets her out of there. And she might have to unlock him from Hemlock's creepy operating table. But I think Crosshair's going to be
Me
the
too.
badass good guy the next season.
And I welcome it, to be honest. I'm ready
Yeah,
for it. He earned it. I want it. I like. I have a great deal of not just appreciation for him as a character, but now, but like an emotional investment in him and wanting to see him have that arc. Who do you think is the Bad Batcher most likely to survive aside from Omega?
to survive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I think Wrecker would be
Same.
the one that survives. I
Yep.
don't. They're not gonna kill. Like, there's always a joke that you Star Wars. They're never gonna kill Chewbacca, right? You don't kill
Right.
the big dog. Like, you don't kill
Oh, damn.
you don't kill the puppy. In these sorts of things. I feel like Wrecker kind of fills that role. He's kind of
Yeah.
like, it would be really sad for them to kill Wrecker off.
Yeah.
It's just like, so I think he'll be most like, and honestly, I don't know. I think if anybody dies next season, I think it will probably be Crosshair. I still think Crosshair's got
Yeah.
that moment of, he'll become a hero, he will die as a hero to save Omega and Hunter, and maybe Omega and Hunter get that sort of like Pabu, lifestyle. Like okay, we got out, we're
Yeah.
out, sort of thing. I think that might be how it goes.
I feel like Wrecker and her will go to Pabu, and that's maybe why we never see her again, even though she's force sensitive. But the reason I think Hunter has a target on his back is because Star Wars loves killing off father figures. Like that is what
That's
it
true.
likes to do. Um, so I feel like I don't know. I feel like Hunter is it's if we were doing like Vegas rankings, I feel like he's got a high percentage of death. Like I don't know about
Yeah,
him. I don't know
and
about him.
I don't know what kind of time jump there's going to be for season three, but
Mm,
remember, like the clones age rapidly, right? So they're
right.
they're all going to die well before Omega does. So
Jesus Christ.
yeah, like they're all going to die. So it'll be
Yeah.
interesting to see, like, do you have that sort of post end credit sort of thing in the final episode where it's Hunter in an old wrinkly skull tattooed face, passing away on Pabu as a 20-year-old Omega buries him and then goes off to find her brother Boba Fett or something like
Oh,
that.
that's right. I do think we're ever going to see Omega and Boba Fett meet.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's the thing. Like you can't establish that she's basically because Boba Fett and her are the same age, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they age the same way. They grow at a normal rate. So in theory, Omega is living around the Mandoverse somewhere, and we know Dave
Mm,
Filoni loves to bring his characters back, and
yeah.
I 100% believe that we will get some sort of meeting at some point between them. And I would not be surprised if it turns out that Omega, being force sensitive, maybe she becomes one of the initial people in Luke's, Jedi temple
Oh.
or some. Maybe Luke finds her and maybe he starts maybe teaching her the ways of the force. I mean, I don't
I'm
know.
ready for Star Wars Saved by the Bell.
Yeah.
Let's-
Yeah, so
we'll
I
get
would
that Wookiee kid. We'll get Omega.
Gunji. Yeah.
Yes, we'll get Gunji, Omega. Yeah, it'll be
And then
great.
Kylo Ren kills them all. So
Oh shit.
But yeah, again, overall, so what are your overall final thoughts on Bad Batch season two? Did you feel like this was superior to the first season? Did you feel it was inferior? How do you feel overall?
Hmm. You know what? I feel like even though there was some tonal whiplash, which we have talked at length, overall, I feel like it really found its footing this season, especially, and it really stuck the landing for me. I feel like it's been a while since I watched the first season. I might feel differently on a rewatch, but I feel like the characters are so much more lived in and so much more realized now that elevated this season quite a bit for me. Whereas in the first season, like I didn't even really care for Wrecker in the first season. He has grown significantly on me because I think he's grown significantly as a character. So yeah, I think ultimately I came away from this feeling like this was a very good season and I'm very emotionally invested in the characters.
Yeah, I think that this definitely was the superior season to one. Although I
Okay.
think I think the best episodes in season two were far and away better than the best seasons episodes in season one.
Yeah.
And I think that even with the treasure
Yeah.
episodes, they were still well done for what they were doing. It's just not what we wanted to see because we're greedy and
Mm-hmm.
we're like, I don't want to watch the kid treasure
Yeah.
quests. I want to see it, but they were still really really good. Like the Gunji episode and
Mm-hmm.
the one with the weird giant Trojan horse out of the mountain thing, the weird
The
that
Zero
kind of
Horizon Zero Dawn monster. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, all that's weird, but it wasn't like there was any truly just. Ugh. I mean, there was a couple, I guess.
The pod racing one's pretty
Yeah, the
bad.
pod racing one. Yeah, see, I'd
I mean,
forgotten about that till you just
it's
brought it up.
important though. Ultimately it justified its existence
Yeah.
by having the Sid character be like that was the setup for that, right? Like that was
Hmm.
and to have it actually kind of we knew it was coming, but it was that was sort of the twist that these bad guys that we had been set up as the villains were actually people that she had screwed over, and you're like, oh, they were the ones that were deserving of vengeance, but okay.
Yeah.
So ultimately I'm even okay with that stupid episode.
Yeah. And I think D. Bradley Baker and Michelle Ong do awesome voice work in
Yes,
this stuff.
yes.
I mean, it's just, especially D. Bradley Baker. I mean, all of the different
I know.
voices he does, it's incredible.
I know.
Even though I was watching that panel and he was going back and forth between each one of them, it's just like,
I gotta
oh,
watch that.
it's so talented. Yeah, because they asked him, they're like, "Who's your favorite character, the Bad Batch?" And then he goes into the Crosshair voice. He's like,
Oh.
"Actually, right now, I would say Crosshair," and it's so cool. And then he immediately goes into Wrecker. He's like, "Yeah,"
Oh my
it's just
God.
really cool. Seeing that basically two people do the voices of everything on this show. It's just pretty
Crazy.
wild.
It's crazy.
So yeah, overall, again, I love this season overall. Some amazing high points. 7 and 8, showing how the clones were replaced by the stormtroopers and how
Mhm.
Palpatine manipulated that whole thing.
Mhm.
Peak Star Wars.
Mhm.
Outpost was peak Star Wars.
Mhm.
Even that one early, I can't remember the name of it, the early season episode with Crosshair with the other sort of like I don't know if they're stormtroopers or whatever, but he was just being a badass and shooting sniper shots off mirrors and bouncing them around and kill.
Mhm.
All of that stuff was just super cool. If you had to give a letter grade to this season, what would you give the letter grade?
I mean, as you're walking me through the season, I'm realizing how many really stellar episodes there were. I had kind of forgotten, even though that's stupid, I had forgotten about the Palpatine episodes and all of the Chuchi stuff and the suicidal clone. I would give
Oh,
this thing, sorry.
no. Go ahead and finish. ADHD. I'll remember. Go ahead.
Okay,
Put
really
in words.
quickly, I would give it an A. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I was gonna say, do you think Hemlock? Because we see in this last episode, Hemlock's got all these clones tied down. Is
Mhm.
he turning them into the believers?
Yes. A hundred
Okay.
percent. A hundred
So
percent.
so is he gonna do that to Crosshair? Is Crosshair gonna start out as a villain again in season 3 because Hemlock's
Ooh,
fucked with his brain? Um,
maybe. I mean, we know that they were putting something in him to begin
yeah.
with, so that could very well be the case that she's going to have to break some of that programming.
Yeah, yeah. I just brought that. Yeah. I'd also give this an A as well.
Mhm.
Again, even the weak episodes, they had important character moments and important beats
Mhm.
that were sort of necessary to go forward. And I can give it a pass because I know going in there's going to be some kid-friendly episodes in it.
Yeah.
That's just you can't have the entire 16 episodes be dark and making like your audience not want to come back because they're too sad to watch the next
Right.
episode.
And this thing is pretty sad when it's sad.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
I'm really interested because I know they're not doing Star Wars Celebration next year, and I think you posted a link. It's going to be in
Mhm.
Japan in 2025.
Start putting your money. Start saving your money. We're going to
Yeah,
Japan.
right. And the thing is, Bad Batch is going to end next year. They're going to announce some new animated show, like the
Mm.
next big flagship Filoni show. What do you think that's going to be? What time period do you think that's going to play in? Do you think it's going to be in like the Mandoverse timeline or
Mm-mm.
the Thronish, or is he going back or still playing in the same kind of post
I
prequel
mean,
era?
the Acolyte is such an outlier. Don't you think they're going to add some supporting stuff around that time period?
I think they're going to add supporting stuff around the sequel trilogy.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, he is. That is where he's doing his work now. He is he's
Yes.
currently Swiffering slash, like trying to clean up that timeline. So maybe you're
Yeah.
right. We need the equivalent of the Clone Wars to make all of that make
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, because they announced that they're going to have a movie starring Rey 15 years after Rise of Skywalker.
Hmm.
And I think that's supposed to be the first movie that's going to start coming out of the three that they announced. So my guess is they're going to start really heavily trying to explain. Well, this is actually
Mm,
why Luke Skywalker thought Ben Solo was going to become a murderous evil person. And this is how Ben Solo fell to Snoke. And this is
yeah,
how all of this happened and why it happened. They'll start laying the groundwork for something like that, I think.
yeah.
Because
One
he
of the
did it in Resistance. I don't know, did you watch Star Wars Resistance at all?
I really tried. I really tried,
Yeah,
and I
that kind of
couldn't.
plays in that time period. I didn't
Hmm.
like the art style for some reason. It was, I don't know,
Mm.
maybe it was
Or
too
the
anime-esque.
characters, or the
Yeah.
writing.
That's probably the only Filoni cartoon I really didn't get into.
I really tried. I watched like most of the first season, and I just like every time I put it on, it felt like a chore.
Yeah, but
Yeah. No. So I mean, one of the like biggest plot points that is dropped that I would love backstory on is the Knights of Ren.
yeah,
So I think maybe you're right. Maybe we do get like kind of a dark sort of Clone Wars-y vibed
yeah,
version of that.
because I mean, and I think Kathleen Kennedy said it's gonna be 6 or 7 years before the Thrawn movie sort of comes out, which means we got
Mm,
a ton more stuff that's gonna be world building around that time period.
awesome.
You don't really need another show necessarily to
No,
fill in that stuff. So I think the next logical step is start building in,
that makes
or
sense.
maybe it's something right after Rise of Skywalker, leading
Could
what
be.
happened in that 15 years before that next movie with Ray. Maybe it's a show that stars Ray. I know Dave Filoni said he really likes that character,
And
so maybe
character's
Dave Filoni.
awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
but
I mean, I'm into it. Like, honestly, if it's gonna retroactively make me love those sequels, I will be delighted. I take no pleasure in thinking they suck butt. I want to love them.
only
But
two of them suck.
yeah,
Only
that's
two.
true. Fair,
Only two.
fair. You're right. I should not lump in the excellent first one because that one was such a joyful experience at the theater. I remember it like it
Hmm.
gave me all the Star Wars feelings I had not had in years. So
Yeah.
I'm
It
sorry.
it did what the sequel trilogy needed to do. It got people back into Star Wars and
Mm-hmm.
created really awesome characters that people could follow. They
Yeah.
just botched the story after it. Yeah,
Squandered.
totally ruined it after that, and that left a bad taste in everyone's mouth.
Hmm.
But we'll see. We'll see where it
We'll see.
goes. It's exciting times. We're going to be
Yeah.
seeing all kinds of Star Wars coming in the future. So, with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to another episode of Nobody's Listening. Coming up soon, we will have episode 7 of this season of Mandalorian. It actually drops, I don't know, in a couple hours here.
Yeah.
Where I'm at, it's Tuesday night when we're recording this right now. So we'll have an episode of that coming up at some point when we can figure out a time to get together for that. And then we've got one more, which will be the great season finale of Mando. And then we're probably going to take a little bit of a break. Rachel's going to fly out to Nebraska. We're going to wine and dine her.
Yeah.
So,
It's so crazy. It's crazy. I
yeah.
like, had a moment where it felt real for the first time today, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm going to Nebraska next week."
Yeah, it's like a month away too, like a little over
I
a month away.
know.
It's wild.
I know.
So yeah, we'll be taking a short break, but we will still pop in over the course of the summer with some interesting one-off episodes, like our top 10 favorite Star Wars characters, and
Mhm.
maybe some other ideas we're bouncing around. But if you guys have an idea out there, listeners now, this show's blowing up. Outpost Unknown, slowly but surely, one listener at a time. If there is something you'd like us to cover or talk about, just leave a comment and we'll put it on the list. We'll be happy to get
Do
to it.
it.
So, with that, thank you once again, Rachel, and we will talk to you soon, discussing whether or not John Favreau yo-yoed back to the good storytelling.
Bye, everybody.